right here. So, words that we've probably heard, I would think, parallel and perpendicular, but let's recap what they mean. So, here's an example of parallel lines, okay? As a reminder, or whether maybe you don't know, parallel lines, two lines that are never ever going to intersect. I know whenever I was in school, my teachers always used the idea of railroad tracks, right? Never ever going to cross, okay? What we're interested in today is we're interested in how to write the equation of parallel lines. So what we're going to find out is there's something special that happens with the slopes that we're going to be interested in. So what I want to do is I'm going to look at these two lines so we can see are parallel. And I want to look at the slopes of these two lines and see if we notice something. So if you're given a line, we talked about this on Monday, to find the slope, you're going to find 2 points on the line. So maybe like that point and that point, those would be 2 points on the line. And you're just going to kind of do the opposite of what you would do to graph it. So if you were to graph it, you plot the y-intercept just way up there. But after you graph a point, you would use the slope to rise over run. So what we're looking for is how far do I have to rise and how far do I have to run? Well, I rise 3, run 1. The slope of that line is 3 over 1, or 3. If I look at the other line, once again, find 2 points on the line, so maybe this point, and do the same thing. To get from this point to this point, we would rise 3, run 1. The slope of that line is also 3. So I have these parallel lines that both have a slope of 3. Do you think that's a coincidence? It's like the first time ever teaching that nobody's finished that. No? Coincidence? Nothing? Really? No Incredibles fans? Oh my gosh. I think not.
No Incredibles?
Yeah. Or he's, I don't even remember what part of the movie, but he's like, coincidence? And they're like, I think not. And then, yeah, you, oh my gosh. Okay. All right, whatever. It's not a coincidence. Parallel lines have the same slope. Parallel lines have the same slope, which would totally make sense. Think about lines. If you're going to rise and run the same amount, well, yeah, this one's never going to cross this one if they're rising and running at the same rate. Okay? So parallel lines have the same slope. Other than that, this is the exact same thing we have done earlier this week. So I want to write the equation of line. It's going to be parallel to y equals 1/3 x minus 2. And it passes through the point -3, 6. Same exact thing we've done the last 2 days. We're going to use point slope form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. To use point slope form, we need to plug something in for y1, m, and x1. Now I have the x1, y1, that's my point, but I need the slope. So I know that my line needs to be parallel to this line, and we know that parallel lines have the same slope. So if I can find the slope of this line, I can find the slope of my line. Well, what's the slope of this line? 1/3. Yeah. So the slope of my line is going to be 1/3. So then we're going to plug in our number. So y minus, my y1 is 6, equals, my slope is 1/3 times x minus a -3 is going to turn to a +3. And then to put it into slope-intercept form, just like we did the last 2 days, we're going to do 2 steps. We're going to distribute first. Y minus 6 equals 1/3 x. 1/3 times 3 is a +1. And then the last step, to get rid of the -6, we are going to add 6. So we have y equals 1/3 x plus 7. Notice that without actually graphing these, I can see that this line has a slope of 1/3 and this line has a slope of 1/3. This one would cross at -2, this one would cross at +7, but they would both rise 1, run 3. They'd never cross. So that's parallel lines. That's pretty simple. Parallel lines have the same slope. Now let's talk about perpendicular lines. What we're going to find out in just a minute is that perpendicular lines have something special about their slopes as well. So let's look at these two lines and see if we can find the slopes of these two lines. So if I start with that line that's sloping up, maybe I pick that point and that point. Once again, we're looking rise over run. I rise 2, run 1. The slope of that line is 2 over 1, just 2. And then for the second line, once again, just picking 2 points. So maybe that one there, and then the next place that it crosses at a nice even point is right there. Now this time I'm going to rise -1, run 2. So rise -1, run 2 would be a slope of -1/2. So I've got these two lines. One has a slope of 2. One line has a slope of -1/2. What's one thing you notice about these lines? That's interesting. You mean, so like 2 and 1/2? So like if one was 4, the other one would be 1/4. One was 5, the other would be 1/5. Yeah. And what? And it would be the opposite sign. See that? So if this is -1/2, you're going to flip the fraction and flip the sign. What they call this is they call it opposite. That refers to the sign. Opposite reciprocals. Opposite reciprocals. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite, different signs. Reciprocals, flip it over. So for this example, we want to write the equation of a line that is perpendicular to y equals -4x plus 1 and passes through that point. Same idea, we're using point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We need to plug something in for y1, m, and x1. I've got my x1, y1, but we need the slope. So what I need first is I need the slope of this line. What's the slope of this line? -4. My slope needs to be the opposite, so I need to flip the sign, reciprocal, so I need to flip the fraction. So since this is a -4, my slope is going to be positive. And since that slope is a 4, I'm going to flip it and it would be 1/4. The slope of the line perpendicular to that one is going to be 1/4. So we have y minus a -1 is going to be y plus 1 equals 1/4 times x minus, and my x1 is going to be 8. And then it's the same thing that we've done. We're going to distribute. Y plus 1 equals 1/4 x, and then 1/4 times -8 is going to be a -2, and then subtract 1 from both sides, so we have y equals 1/4 x minus 3. So other than finding the slopes, this is the same thing we did the last couple of days. All right, let's get this glued into page 43. This is section 5-6, and it is parallel and perpendicular lines. So first thing, let's practice that. Let's practice just finding the slope of a line parallel to the given line. So number 1, y equals 2/3 x minus 3. So if I wanted to write a line parallel to this line, I need to know the slope of this line because my line is going to have the same slope. As long as it's in y equals, you can tell what the slope is. It's in y equals, what's the slope? 2/3. So if the slope of this line is 2/3, what's the slope of a line parallel to this line? Also 2/3, right? Same thing. Now you are going to have to work a little bit on some of these. If I have 3x minus 4y equals 10. Now remember, as long as it's in y equals, you just have to look at your x and find the number in front of it, but you can only do that to find the slope if it's in y equals. If it's not in y equals, you got to put it in y equals. And it's been a week probably since we've done this. So in order to solve for y, you're going to move your x term first. So I'll subtract 3x from both sides. That negative is still going to be in front of the 4, so it would be a negative 4y equals. And remember, I like to write the x first, so it's going to be a negative 3x plus 10. And then, to get rid of the negative 4, we'll divide everything by negative 4, so we would get y equals, and then remember we do the butterfly method here. Negative 3x over negative 4, a negative over a negative, going to be a positive 3/4 x. Now if you want to go ahead and take 10 divided by negative 4, you can, but spoiler alert, you don't really need that. What I need is the slope. So if the slope of this line is 3/4, what's the slope of my line? 3/4. Parallel lines have the same slope. Okay. Now let's talk about a line that's perpendicular to the other line. So number 3, y equals negative 6/7 x plus 5. Now it's the same idea. The only thing I need from this line is the slope. I don't care about anything else with this line. I just care about the slope. So what's the slope of this line? Negative 6/7. If I need to write a line perpendicular, or any line that's perpendicular to this line is going to have a slope that's the opposite reciprocal. So opposite means I'm going to change the sign. So my slope's going to be positive, and the reciprocal means you're going to flip it. So what would the slope of a line perpendicular to this line be? 7/6, a positive 7/6. And then of course we may have to work a little bit harder. 2x minus 5y equals 15. So once again, super important, you cannot pick out the slope unless it's in y equals. So the first thing I need to do is to put it into y equals. So we're going to move the 2x, so subtract 2x from both sides. So we have negative 5y equals, once again, I like to put the x first, so it'll be a negative 2x plus 15. And then to get rid of the negative 5, divide by negative 5. So we would have y equals negative 2 over a negative 5 would give me a positive 2/5 x. If you want to do the other one, you can. 15 over negative 5 is negative 3. Doesn't hurt. Don't need it, but doesn't hurt. Okay, the slope of this line is 2/5. A line perpendicular to this line is going to have a slope that is the opposite reciprocal. What would the slope be of a line perpendicular to this line? Negative, and then flip it, 5/2. Makes sense? Okay, now let's actually write some equations of a line. So these ones, we want to write the equation of a line that is parallel to y equals 3x minus 2 and contains the point 6, negative 2. I want to write the equation of a line parallel to this line and passes through this point. Okay? This is the same thing we've been doing the last couple of days. We're going to use point slope form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Just like what we've done the last few days, I need a y1, an m, and an x1. There's my x1, y1, but I need my slope. What is the slope of my line going to be? The same as this one, right? And it's in y equals, so the slope of this line is 3, so the slope of my line is 3. So then we're going to plug it all in. So we're going to do y. Now when I do minus negative 2, that's going to be a plus 2, equals my slope, we said, is going to be 3. And then x minus my x1 is 6. And then we'll write it in slope-intercept form, so just like we've been doing, we're going to distribute. So y plus 2 equals 3x. 3 times negative 6 would give me a negative 18. And then to get rid of the plus 2, we'll subtract 2. So y equals 3x minus 20. Now what if number 6 looks like this? negative 4x plus 3y equals 6 and passes through the point negative 9, comma 5. Now I know that my line needs to be parallel to this line, which means my line has to have the same slope as this line. Can you tell me what the slope of that line is? Because it's not in y equals. So just like we did above, the first thing we need to do, we need to solve that equation for y. So we're going to add 4x to both sides. So we get 3y equals, on that right-hand side, we'd have 4x plus 6. And then to get rid of the 3, divide by 3. So we would get y equals, and then when we do the butterfly method, 4x over 3, we'll turn that to 4/3 x. 6 over 2 will give me a plus 2. So the slope of this line is 4/3. My line is perpendicular to this line. Sorry, parallel to this line. So what's the slope of my line? Got ahead of myself a little bit. Also 4/3. It's going to be the same thing. So we're going to use point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Plug something in for y1, for m, and for x1. So we're going to do y minus, instead of y1, we'll plug in 5. Instead of m, we're going to use 4/3. That's what we found the slope of that line is. A parallel line is going to have the same slope. And then x minus a negative 9 would turn to a plus 9. And then we need to distribute. So y minus 5 equals, okay, the 4/3 x, that's the easy part. Kind of a, I guess, a trick if you're not super confident with multiplying fractions. When you take 4/3 times 9, what I think the easiest thing to do, take this number divided by that number. So 9 divided by 3, 3, and then multiply by the top number, which would be 12. Or you can plug it in a calculator. And then add 5 to both sides. So y equals 4/3 x plus 17. You guys have questions? So you can kind of see it's kind of just more practice from what we've been doing. All right, number 7. This time we want to write the equation of a line that's perpendicular to the given line. So it's the same thing. We're just going to find the slope a different way. So number 7, y equals negative 1/5 x plus 6, perpendicular to that line, and passes through the point negative 4, comma 0. Okay, so it's the same idea. We're still using point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We're going to plug something in for y1, m, and x1. Got my x1, y1, but I need my slope. So I need the slope of this line. It's in y equals, so the slope of this line is... the slope of this line is negative 1/5. My line needs to be the opposite, reciprocal. What's the slope of my line going to be? Positive 5. Yeah, positive 5. Flip the sign, flip the fraction. So it's going to be y minus, my y1 is 0, equals 5 times x minus a negative 4 is going to be a plus 4. Now this time, y minus 0, just gives me y. And then when you distribute the 5, it'd be 5x plus 20. So that one was a little bit easier. Had maybe one less step there. Okay, last one. Let's try one more of those. All right, 6x minus y equals 5. Perpendicular to that line, passes through the point 12, comma negative 5. what is the first thing I'm going to have to do with this one? I need to solve this one for y, because I need the slope of this line, and to get the slope of this line, it needs to be y equals, so we're going to move the x over, minus 6x. Now I still have negative y equals, and over here, remember guys, you're gonna keep the sign that's in front of the term. So this is a negative 6x plus 5, and then divide by negative 1, and we get y equals, and do the butterfly method. So negative 6 over a negative 1 would be a positive 6x. 5 over negative 1 would give me negative 5. So the slope of this line is 6. My line needs to be the opposite reciprocal. What would the slope of my line be? Negative, and then flip it, 1/6. So we're still using point slope form, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We need a y1, m, and x1. We have now found all of those things. So we do y minus a negative 5. It's going to turn into a plus 5. We said the slope is going to be a negative 1/6. And then x minus x1 will be an x minus 12. So we're going to distribute the negative 1/6. Y plus 5 equals negative 1/6x. Then when you take negative 1/6 times a negative 12, a negative times a negative, gives me a positive. And then remember, take the big number divided by the number underneath. 12 divided by 6 would be 2. Multiply by the numerator, would be a 2. This would be negative 1/6x plus 2. And then finally subtract 5 from both sides. So y equals negative 1/6x minus 2.